I worked from home for 12 years when I first moved to Jacksonville, and it was really hard to meet people. And throughout getting into real estate and building this community, I feel like Jacksonville is where we're going to be forever because we just have this group of people. They come, they go, but we still keep in touch.
Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast. Your host, Tracy Hayes. Are you ready for an exciting and action-packed episode? Today, I have Toby Elkins, a Navy veteran who served the country for 13 years and somehow managed to even earn his bachelor's degree while in the Navy in business administration from Columbia College. But that's not all. He's also joined forces with his wife, Jenna, to form the Elkins Group, a powerhouse team that has served 67 families in 2022. Closed deals worth a staggering $25 million. But wait, it gets even better. In this episode, we'll be diving deep into the strategies, mindset, and vision of the Elkins Group has for 2023 after their incredible success in 22. Join us as we welcome Toby and Jenna Elkins of the Elkins Group with Momentum Realty to the show.
Thanks so much. We're really excited to be here.
Yes, thank you. As we're talking pre-show, I really enjoy having the couples on because you guys, I'm digging more into the top agents. And obviously, couples working together is a unique thing. And to actually make it work at work and not at work is kind of amazing. So we're going to dig into that today.
Yeah.
So, but Toby, let's start off a little bit just so everyone gets a little background on you guys. I'll start off with Toby, Jenna, and then we'll go to Jenna. Toby, where did you grow up? And then, what led you into the Navy?
Sure. So grew up in a small town called Pine Top, Arizona. Maybe like 5,000 people. Grew up there. So if you don't know, there's 2 ski resorts in Arizona. One's in Flagstaff, and the other one kind of from Sunrise there. And then we kind of, I did a little bit of college outside of high school. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I ended up joining the Navy. I told my parents, hey, I got to get out of here, do something.
Yeah.
Joined the Navy and then did that for 13 years. Did 6 deployments. So 6 deployments away from each other. Learned a lot from that. My family has some background in real estate, and that's kind of how I jumped into that.
Because, from what I could tell from your LinkedIn and then just translating what's online to what you're telling me now, it wasn't something like immediately like after high school, you're like, oh, I'm going to join the Navy, that summer. You came out and started to work a little bit and were like, at some point you're like, you know what, I've got to get out here.
Yeah. So sports all in high school, baseball, basketball, and football. So I did a little bit of played college baseball at a community college. Kind of thought, everyone pro athlete and do that, and then you hit the reality and we're like, oh, it's a lot harder than you think. So I had some odd jobs. I was like a manager at Fuddruckers, which was nice. I was laughing at that.
It's one of my favorite hamburger. I put that in the top 5 hamburger places.
Yeah. Because he's very proud of that job.
I'm very proud of it. For burgers and shakes. And then that was in Phoenix at the time, but I didn't really have a lot of direction at the time. I was a young kid. So I moved back home. I started working at a car sales place for one of my friends. Their parents owned it. Wasn't really in the sales side. It was more just like cleaning cars. Yeah. And I became the head high school baseball coach there to give back a little bit because I love baseball. Mm-hmm. And then at that point, I wasn't really in school at the time anymore. I was like, my uncle lives in Jacksonville. He was in the Navy as well. So kind of talked a little bit about that. And then I was like, I think I'm going to join the Navy.
So what was your occupation in the Navy?
Navy, so I was on the aviation side. So it's called a WO. Mm. So I did a lot of I was in the back of the plane. It was crazy. You're in the Navy, but I was never on a ship once. So,
well, my immediate thing when you said air service, I figured you were on a carrier. That was my immediate thing.
It's a big plane. They're all stationed at NAS Jax here. Mm-hmm. It's like a 767. But it's called...
They're hunting for submarines.
Yep. Yeah. It was a P3 and then it transitioned to a P8, the new planes. Mm-hmm. So they had different roles in the back. I was more the electronic warfare, did the radar, electronic work, the camera work. And then there was another role for some other people that were doing that dropped the sonobuoys and then you track it with the sonar and then we're, tactically figuring out where that's
Pax River's another, or I don't know if it's still operation. Pax River's another.
Yeah, we were stationed in Pax for 3 years. Jenna called it hard time.
3 years hard time.
3 years hard time. There's not a lot to do with that. It wasn't bad for me because I was like, kind of reminded me of
It's not that far from DC though. I mean,
yeah, it's there's Amish country in between where we were living and the airport, and I was traveling a lot for work. So it was just very in the middle of nowhere for us to go to Jacksonville.
We pretty much lived in DC or Baltimore every week.
I'm trying to remember what year. I want to say it was like 94, 95-ish before your time. But a good friend of mine, he was actually a civilian attorney for NAVFAC, the Naval Facilities Command at the time, and he was stationed at Pax River. So I was living in Centerville, Virginia. So it was a couple times like on the weekend we go there because he had officer status at the base, so he could go out and play on the golf course. So we'd go out and play.
Oh, nice.
On the golf course overlooking. And of course, those planes were coming in and out all the time because those guys are getting their hours and touches down. Yeah. Jenna, give us a little background on you. And then when do you run into this guy?
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Boston, Massachusetts, about 20 miles north of Boston. Grew up there, went to college at Northeastern University, and after college immediately got into event planning work. So I was in corporate event planning for about 12 years, traveled all over the world, planned massive events for mainly large events for about 10,000 people. And then COVID hit. And that was sort of how I transitioned into the real estate role. That was sort of like a backup for me.
So was the event planning just something that came about, or was actually an interest of yours at the time, or just an opportunity that you took to and went with?
Yeah, I've always loved event planning, and I still do. I still kind of have my hands in it, but I grew up just planning all events for my friends. I was class president in high school, so I was planning all the proms and everything. And then Northeastern's an internship college, so you work 6 months out of the year and you go to school 6 months out of the year. So my last internship was in event planning, and I kept that job for about 11 years.
So I was looking on your LinkedIn, and you most recently went back and got your master's.
I did.
Here recently.
Graduated in
Excellent.
September.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
They're up there. Did you do that on a kind of online thing?
Yep.
Yeah.
I went through Northeastern again and did the online
program. What is it like? Obviously I'm old school and I'm older than you guys. So the online thing, to me, I can't stand watching these webinars.
Yeah.
We have Loan Depot has all this training, and I mean, it's overwhelming the amount of stuff that's out there. But how do you stay focused on in getting a master's degree online? I mean, did you feel you had to have discipline yourself to stay with it?
I think I'm just a very self-disciplined person to begin with. When I have my mind set to something, I'm going to get it done. I think with the online MBA course, you miss a lot of the personal connections that you would make if you were attending classes,
right,
meeting the professors and all of that. But for me, it was just, powering through and getting it done. A lot of reading, a lot of listening to, like you said, webcasts and all of that stuff. But it wasn't.
Well, actually, I have more attention to the YouTube videos than I do some of these webinars that corporates do go on, because I guess sometimes I can pause it and, go back I just always, I've thought about it in the last 20 years. So should I go get a master's degree? And can I actually, do I have the discipline? Because when I was in college, I had to learn how to learn. And one of the things was sitting in the front row and taking dubious notes and so forth. Is the online thing, am I going to be able to stay focused? That's always been so that's why I wanted to ask that question when it came up. So when do you guys?
When we met. So we actually met at a party in Arizona at Arizona State, and I was visiting a friend from high school.
And I was good friends with her.
He was good friends with, and we played beer pong, and I beat him in beer.
She's the one.
Yeah.
And she rubbed it in too. So
I still do.
That's interesting. I think the Cotton team met in a very similar situation. Actually, they were at kind of a friend's party type thing, and she actually made more advance towards him. Josh is a little more reserved type thing. So you're not even in the Navy yet.
Wasn't in the Navy yet. So we were like, we had instant connection. We were young and broke, we didn't really have a job. Okay, how's this going to work?
I was still living in Boston.
I'm trying to, the dynamic too of you, because you're still going to school at this time. You're a full-time student, and here's this guy who just graduated from high school. What's he going to do with his life?
It's a loser.
Yeah. I don't think I thought at the time that I was going to marry this person.
So then, we were like messaging on AIM. That's when AIM was its name.
Yeah. I still have an AOL email address. My personal email is AOL.
Yeah. And then we lost touch for a couple of years. And then I joined the Navy, and I told her friend, I was like, hey, do you have Jenna's number? Because, I had camp, and then I was getting stationed up in Maine.
Oh.
I was stationed up in Maine, Brunswick, which is like 2 hours from Boston. I knew she was in Boston. So I got her number and text her and
Blast from the past.
Awesome.
Dinner, and that's kind of how,
Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. How that happened, what's the chances that you knew you were going to, end up in Maine, but you end up in Maine and, of all the thousands of other places they could have sent you. Yeah. That's awesome. So. I grew up on Cape Cod. I was born in New York, but really grew up on Cape Cod and graduated high school there. But I came south for college. Well, Charleston's a little nicer. So you're 13. I'm just imagining you fill in the gaps here. You spent 13 years. We, as I mentioned in the intro, during that time, it looked like, because I saw your time you got your degree, you took advantage of that. The Navy got your degree at that time. 13 years comes up. You decide you're not going to enlist again, and you're already in Jacksonville. Is that kind of?
Yeah. So we were up in Maine, and then I went on my first deployment to El Salvador. We're doing like drug ops down there, and we were moving. The whole base was shutting down. We're moving to Jacksonville. And so Jenna came down with me. And then so like I did a couple more deployments in like the Middle East. And then at like my 6-year mark, I wanted to, like I was talking about, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe a nurse, maybe do this. I have no idea. I was a cop. It just wasn't the right time. We didn't have enough in savings to make that move. Jenna was working at the time. She was breadwinner for sure. So during that time, like a couple of years before I got out, I knew that I finally hit it. I was like, all right, this makes sense. I'm going to get into real estate. My dad did it after his job of 30 years. And then he works with my sister. My brother's a wholesaler in Arizona as well. So I kind of knew a little bit about it, but obviously the market's different from here and there. So all I really did is I started building relationships with all my, Navy buddies and sisters. So I made sure to never burn any bridges or anything like that. So when I made the move was a little crazy because Jenna was in a job transition too because of the COVID thing. Yeah. So we didn't really have any income for a couple months. Yeah. So it was like, you have to make this work. And so my last deployment, I was doing tons of research, just looking at all the different brokerages, and I didn't know what I didn't know. Right. So I was just looking at the numbers. I'm more of like, I can figure stuff out on my own, trying to learn it. So look at podcasts, everything like that. And then that's how I went to EXP first, because I get to work from home. Already got the discipline and everything from the Navy, which was great. So got some couple good skill sets, communication, stuff like that through that way. So kind of hit the ground run. I had a couple deals right off the bat, which was nice. And I remember I have this thing, the first check. I feel like I'm going to save that forever because I saw it. It's like, man, I did this for 12, 13 years and I got my first check like this. And I was like, that's awesome. Yeah. Yes. Kind of hit the ground running. And then first year still didn't really know what I was doing. Just taking action, reaching out to as many people as possible.
Well, let's dig in a little bit to that. Like I said, one of the things the podcast for is if we got people who are thinking about being an agent like you were, and you were listening to a podcast, maybe you're listening to this, or, there's a lot of agents out there that have hit a lid or struggling through. I know like Heather Perez, it took her several years before, figuring out, of course, she started at a very young age. So what was EXP doing? I mean, I guess someone you ran into recruited you into EXP. So where did that action happen? And what were some of the things? Did they help you with some initial things to do, or you were just totally, hey, I got to go on YouTube and find out what people do to get their real estate business going?
Pretty much. Yeah. So yeah, they a lot of brokers do it too. Like you can sponsor someone coming in. So with that, I was listening to podcasts, trying to figure out like, how do I get coached? I had like really no guidance or anything. Like I didn't really know how to do anything. So I was going through YouTube, podcasts, anything. I stumbled across some other ones, one in particular that was, they're probably getting on the side, but they were, trying to get recruiting people to EXP. And one of the people that they were interviewing, he's in South Carolina. I don't know him personally. I just reached out because they gave him the number and that's how I got connected. But I knew the numbers and the splits, everything kind of made sense, but still I didn't really know anything about real estate. I feel like I still don't. So that's kind of what led me there. And it's just, I just kind of had to learn on my own. But with the EXP, it's great though too, because especially every brokerage is like this too. They had great training for me and I soaked it all in. And, I love to learn. And then, they have a program, like for your first 3 deals, you get help with your contracts.
Right. I'm trying to remember who I had on was mentioning that. Well, and not to put EXP down because I've had EXP agents, there's people who do it really well, but real estate in general is a lot of times these brokerages are set up like multi-level marketing things. And the best teams that I've ever seen, having been involved in my 30 years post-college in some different multi-level marketing, the guys that are really making it are pouring the consistent personal development and their own trainings back into their downline, so to speak. And so, yeah, if you join a EXP team where you don't have someone who's consistently pouring into you, and what's interesting, you said about you heard him on a podcast, is I know, and it might be that person. Someone was telling me there was an agent who they set up a podcast and they invited all these people in, and they, of course, introduced them to EXP. And now they live in Puerto Rico and live off all that.
You know exactly.
I know we might have talked about that when we met the first time. So when do you actually envision the Elkins Group? When does Jenna join you here and start helping you out with some of the back end stuff?
Sure. So it was probably towards the end of the first year. I would go a couple deals and then didn't have anything like a month. And I was like, oh, this is crazy. I'm not building much consistency or like some momentum going. But then I finally started to figure it out like around 6 or 7 year mark or month mark. Yeah. And so, I told Jen, I was like, hey, I'm starting to get pretty busy. This is why I'm working till like 11 p.m., midnight, sometimes 1 a.m. Cause she's like, you got to shut it down. I was like, I can't shut it down because it's the customer. Everything's about the customer. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, get your license. I mean, we work together, we get along great. I was married for going 12 years. I was like, I'll get you up to speed as fast as I can. So she got her license towards the end of the first year. Mm-hmm. And then, we've been trying to figure it out. So
I need to introduce what you just said sounds like my wife right now. And I keep telling her now it's not going to be me. I could tell you that I could not be her operations back office. Because I am not attention to detail, but to have that, because yes, she's, whether you've got a listing appointment and then you got buyers you're trying to show around and you obviously want to focus on that in that situation. If you got especially with a listing, make sure that listing is, squared away and it's ready to go, and of course they want it on as soon as possible. But, there's things that need to be done. And, sometimes you got to get over there and do some of those things to help them get it ready. It takes up a lot of time. And the next thing I know, she's on the computer into the evening. I'm like, what could you be doing? But there's agents who are messaging. There's agents scheduling showings. Yeah. I know she literally had a listing. I stuck the sign in the yard there's my operations. I stuck the sign in the yard for her on Thursday and literally immediately was 3 showings on Friday, a dozen or more showings on Saturday, and, she's scrambling around and she's let's say slightly towards the perfectionist side and wanting that house to look as the best it does. Like she said, I need to run over and turn the lights on. It looks a lot better when all the lights are on, that kind of thing. Yeah. So Jenna, where did you saw his pain?
Yeah.
Where did you see where you're going to step in and help?
Well, it's interesting because, you were talking about EXP and, I think that if I was joining real estate organically, I never could have vibed EXP. Mm-hmm. I'm a people person. I love community. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I think EXP's been a wonderful brokerage for us, but it didn't feel the personal engagement that I think would have helped me thrive. So I really kind of held on to his coattails. And, I think the transition from, seeing him, up all night till 3 a.m, watching these videos, trying to learn and just being like, what is going on? But then when COVID hit and I really did need a backup plan, it kind of forced me into, okay, let's try this. And so it took us a while to kind of work through the kinks and figure out, I don't love the cold calling. I don't love going out and getting the business. It's really hard for me to pick up the phone and call someone out of the blue and get rejected. Like it ruins my day. And I'm working on it, but it's very difficult for me. So we kind of ironed out the kinks and I'm a problem solver. It's like a natural thing for me being in events. And so pretty much what we've worked out is, once they get under contract, I'm there through the end. I'm working out the deals on, the inspection report and helping them with all of the obstacles and the negotiations and stuff like that, which I love.
Right.
I'm still there, but she takes the lead completely.
Yeah.
So if they need to talk, if I'm, if I did all the showings, if I have the rapport, I connect her immediately with the customer.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I can see the transition from the event planning to what you're doing now because you're a detail-oriented person.
Yeah.
And an event and then on every event, you have the details ironed out, but we know it ain't going to happen that way. And you're prepared to handle the issues like a real estate transaction. No real estate transaction goes through perfectly smooth, and maybe
I
just
wish.
a small thing where something small needs to be repaired. Hopefully that's it. But there's others that, go awry, whether it's in the lending side, the home's not there, or the appraisal comes in low, or whatever it is. There's always something that throws a little wrench in the engine. But I can see, how that directly correlates with because it is an event. I think people, they don't understand. I do a lot of events. I'm president of my alumni association, so I hold several events. But even if I'm doing a seminar like next week at the St. John's board, I'm going to start hitting the social media out there now. Say, hey, you need to be there. You need to be there. You need to be there. Yeah. And because you got to create that momentum going in. I see a lot of people from an event planning, just to go off on my slight little tangent here. They plan an event and think because they just post it once on Facebook that everyone's just going to be like looking for events that day. I'm like, there's a lot of things going on in the real estate world, right? But when it comes down to the customer, it's an event for them.
Oh yeah.
And your detail has got it planned out. This is going to happen on these days, knowing that it may not happen. They might get pushed out a day, but you're prepared for that because you're used to that.
Yeah, she's really good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think communication is the biggest thing too, as you said, right? You can't just put an event out there and expect that everyone's going to come. It's making sure that they're informed throughout the process. And I feel like that's one of the things that we really try really hard to do, is just making sure that, there's not a lot of lag in between the times that we're communicating with them, that they know here's what's happening. We're waiting for the appraisal. We're waiting on this. And I think that's been one of the reasons our customers come to us.
We're really big on that, is the education. So it doesn't matter if it's a first time buyer, if they bought like 10 homes, we always treat them the same, because I remember when we bought our first place and we sold, not saying anything bad about the other agent, but they didn't really tell us anything, so we didn't really know what was going on. We just, because you're putting all your trust into them. So what we do is make sure to disclose everything. At the same time, I want to make sure, they know what their appraisal is. They know in the contingency, they know the special contingency, they know what a binder is. They know, what seller credits are, concessions, like all that, because I feel like it's really more important because we're all on the same team, so at the end of the day, when they're done, they have that great experience and then they tell their friends. So,
yeah.
I mean, Jenna, how important, because each of you answer this question, actually. How important is it to set the expectations for them? Like you said, giving them a little, hey, you're going to, this is what the escrow is going to have. I was just working client. I got in process here today. Yes, here's your insurance. They're going to put it all together. That's going to be part of your cash to close. So she's, oh, great. Thank you. And she's not closing for another couple of weeks, but now she's not worried about paying that out now, taking that little bit of time to educate. Now, okay, now we got the policy set. This is what we're going to do. That's going to be part of your cash to close, and you just going to bring it all at closing. How important is it, up front to set those expectations with your buyer or seller?
Very important, because if you don't, and then they get that settlement statement or the Alta and they check it out and they don't know what that is, there's going to be some issues, and you're going to have to talk about it. And then, sometimes you're going to have to eat it, like what it is. I mean, we do that quite a bit.
Who's better at explaining the Alta?
Oh, I think he is. I think he's really good at, to be honest, it's setting expectations, whether you're a seller or a buyer, about the market in general, and just letting people know, you put your house on the market, the market shifted. It's not going to get 10 offers right off the bat like it did 3 months ago. And so people know what they're getting into, but it's also a very emotional experience for people. And so I feel like Toby's really good at, taking the emotion out of it and being very matter of fact. So I definitely think that I hand that off.
Are you the shoulder they cry on?
Yeah.
Have you? So this came up in another team, and I can't remember. I think I've actually asked for a couple teams, because you have different personalities, or just even a male female situation. Where have you found the customer bond to one of you more than the other? Like Toby maybe gone out and did that listing appointment, and then of course he introduced them to you, but then they're just calling you all the time, Jenna.
Yeah.
They just, and vice versa.
Sure.
Just depending on who they kind of connect with. Kind of as the analogy I use is like the kids, they always want to go to mom to get the answer, right? Because dad will tell it. So
we talk about this every now and then, because like if we get a customer and whatnot, like I can tell like their personality, how they approach their communications and everything like that. And if it's a better fit for Jenna to do it, then I'm like, hey, I'm going to pass. I'm still here,
right?
Like to help or anything, but like you're going to take this customer because it's going to be a better fit for this person.
Yeah. And sometimes we've done listing appointments where we'll go together and, he'll talk the numbers and he'll talk the details and I'll go around the house and comment on things and talk about how things should be placed and stuff like that. And that's worked really well too. Yeah.
What have you in the recent market conditions, from what I am understanding, listening to agents, is the pricing of the home is very important. You could have two homes listed at the same price point. One's listed at the correct price point. One is not. How important is it when you're sitting down, especially recently the last 3 to 6 months, and really honing in on the price? And when you have that customer who wants to, if they want to charge less and you tell them more, I guess they're not going to argue with that too much, but obviously thinks their house is worth more. I mean, how are you handling that kind of discussion?
Yeah. So that's setting expectations up front. You have to, before they sign anything, you have to be on the same team. You have to be on the same level, because pricing now compared to what it was, you could price it whatever you wanted a year ago, and you're going to get the offer.
Right.
As long as they're covering the appraisal gap and the offer, the term is good.
Right.
If you're representing the seller. But now it's everything, because it's going to sit longer. And the longer it sits, the consumer is going to be like, why is that sitting? It depends on the skill set of their agent to let them know, is because the interest rates are higher. There's more, supply. It's a little less demand, but it's going to get better. So the pricing is everything. So if you're looking at that in the neighborhood, you're letting them know, like, hey, this is your competition. So if you're a little bit lower than what it is, and depending on the different variables that other property has been on the market a little longer,
right? You
just got to position yourself going in the right way.
Yeah. And I think, we've had a recent customer who was really proud of his house and has to sell it, but wanted to price it higher. And, ultimately it's their say, right?
Right.
They want to price it at a certain point. You say, okay. And the expectation is that, there's 3 other houses in your neighborhood that are priced lower. So it's going to sit a little bit longer. If you're willing to wait, that's fine. And it's always just a constant conversation. So, check in every week and let them know how many showings there are. And then, this is,
it's like the pricing thing is very important in the beginning. It's like one of the most important things, but it's also like setting expectations, like how often you're going to, if you don't have a certain amount of showings or offers by this certain, we're probably, the market's telling us we're going to need a price adjustment.
Right.
So, just having that stuff, those conversations up front, it goes a long way.
As a real estate agent, how much does that digs into you, doesn't it?
What's that?
When you even when the customer priced the home, they insisted, no, I got to get that extra 20 grand or whatever. Even though you went, because when you go with them, you're already, okay, we'll do it because you said so. Yeah. But I'm recommending here. It digs at you because you're not seeing. And I'll brag about my wife a little bit. She's had 2 listings in the last 2 months, and literally, they went on one on Friday, one went on Thursday. By Monday, they had their offers. They had multiple offers. One even went for 20 grand higher in all in the last couple of months. And where she's telling me how much she worked to obviously educate the buyer that that's the right price to sell it for. The buyer thought the house was going to sit for 6 months, and now it's under contract right now. But it digs into you when you know that house is sitting there and it's a good house, but just because of the price, that little thing is just setting everyone off, and you're not getting the hits like you are in social media, right? If it doesn't have the right intro, you don't get the hits.
Yeah.
And it don't have that right price, you just don't get those initial hits.
Yeah, it's tough, but at the end of the day, it's the customer's choice. You're just educate and let them know, like, hey, we know the market. We work here. We've lived here for a long time. This is what is going on currently.
Yeah.
If you do that, we can do that, but it's going to sit.
Right.
No,
I wish that I don't, if a buyer or maybe a future, someone listing the house with you or thinking about you guys is listening to this, and this is happening around, because talking to the agents, that's the difference of the house sitting for weeks or not being sold yet versus that house that the first weekend had multiple offers. Is what the agents are telling me is it priced right?
Yeah. And what it really matters though, obviously it depends on the customer, but there's so many variables, right?
Yeah.
So like, what if they, if they have to buy, if it's contingent on that sale to buy the next property, then they're going to be more willing to listen, right? And
a little more aggressive.
Correct. Hopefully,
yeah.
Right? No, hopefully, because otherwise, it's a lot of pressure. So, but if they don't, if it can sit, it can sit, but the pricing's everything.
I'm going to just step off. Well, just kind of step back actually just a moment, because I had this question in here, and I think this is very important for all of our veterans, the transition from, 13 years, that structured environment. I had Jordan Planko. He put over a decade. I can't remember exactly how many years, but roughly about the same amount of years in the Navy. And to come out of that structured environment and into real estate literally overnight, you, like you said, you left the Navy, now where's my next paycheck going to come from?
Yeah.
From that standpoint, what are some things, 2 or 3 things that you would recommend to your brothers and sisters out there who are in the service and are coming out? And whether it's real estate or whatever, what are some things they could start preparing themselves for? I think you started preparing before, obviously.
It was a couple of years before.
Yeah. Give them a couple tips.
Yeah, it depends on their goals. So if they're trying to look to retire, do their 20 so they can get their pension and everything. Obviously, then you have some time to procrastinate at all. A lot of people that I know procrastinate to the very end. They don't really know what they're going to do. And then they have, they're forced to get in a job. Mm-hmm. Either, they have kids or whatnot, or family. But what I recommend, what I did, you don't have to go 2 years, but start looking at least a year out just to get an idea of what you want to do. There's tons of great programs out there too. That you got your TAP class, everything like that. There's a nonprofit that we're going to start working with that helps veterans, transition from that career to the civilian world. So there's all those different programs, but it's mostly just getting out there and being vulnerable and talking.
Would you agree that they kind of have to get out of the box? Because I think one of the challenges with being in the service and coming out, and I know these different groups that are trying to help the veterans who are coming out, there is not always a direct relation to what you are doing there, but there are things that those skills can be translated over into something else. Or in your case, your self-discipline, the structured environment that you were coming from, you took that. And now, of course, now you're civilian. So also there's no more structure. You created your own structure.
Correct. That was a big reason why I joined the Navy too, is because I needed discipline. I was a young kid and I needed that. And, the biggest thing I think out of the military get, and it's the best thing, is perspective. So you're going, on those deployments for 6-7 months. There's all these rules, crazy rules. I hated it. I hate rules still. But what you get out of it is you learn discipline and you learn patience, which is very relatable to, the civilian side, because I think that's why we, do good with our customers, because we're patient, we're disciplined, and kind of take the emotion out of it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But I think just building on that, I think one of the things that was a little difficult for you just from observing was, and even a lot of our buyers and sellers are military or former military. And so working with VA buyers, they are on top of it. They sign the contracts. They're just deadlines are deadlines, right?
Right.
And then you work with some of the civilian side. And I remember him getting really impatient. Like, why won't they just sign them?
Sign the paper.
And I'm like, Toby, this is a real world. Not everyone is, disciplined like that. And so that was like a little bit of a transition for you.
Yeah, it could be anything. It could be that buyer side. It could be another agent over there. I'm like, all right, we got the inspection done the next day. And then we got it all. Here's the RRTA. We sent it over there for repairs. Like, Jenna, why aren't they signing? It's been like 2 days now. What are they doing?
Making the command decision. I took the assessment that John gives. I don't know if you've taken that yet, where it breaks down. I think it's 35 or 38, 36 personalities, and it breaks down. Of course, you want to focus on what's your 5 things, and one of the clear things in there is for me, and I think you probably fall into, is we make a command decision and we go forward. We don't even need to know all the details. Right. We just know. We've got to get from here to there. Let's start the journey. Let's go. Because we're going to sit here and procrastinate over it.
I took that. It's the same.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's real important. That's what we did. You just got to take action. Otherwise, if you don't take action, then you're just going to think about it. You want to try perfect. It's never going to be perfect. And by the time you do think it's perfect, it's years down the road. You got to take action. That's how you make mistakes. Well, you are going to make mistakes, but that's how you learn. So.
Flying the plane while you're building it, kind of.
Yeah, something like that. All right, I'm gonna ask this question, but slightly different to each of you, but a similar question, because now you've been 3 years?
Yeah, we just hit 3 years.
3 years. So if you look back, what you know now, I think you kind of mentioned the EXP thing, that you probably would have searched out a more structured brokerage to feed you at that time, but you only know what you know. But what are two things that you did, and you've probably obviously changed because you guys are doing really well, but two things you were doing initially that, you would recommend to a new agent that, I did that. I wouldn't recommend doing. Those are a couple of mistakes or a couple of learning.
Right. Like in my first year too, like I said, I didn't know what I didn't know. There's a lot of shiny things out there, and there's a lot of people want you to pay money and all that stuff that doesn't work. What it really comes down to is like, I get asked all the time, like, hey, I want to get started doing this real estate. I'm like, that's great. Like, let's go get a coffee. Let's talk about it. Sometimes they don't show up. It's like showing up first. That's number one. Number two is that it's not like, I tell them, it's like real estate's not what you think it is when you see on social media. Like, I'm not really like doing that stuff, but I have to do it. You got to be top of mind. But like, it comes out, it's work. You got to work. It's a lot of hard work. So,
I mean, in terms of things, I know there's things that we would recommend doing. I think from my perspective, it's not a lot of what I wouldn't do, because I think for me, it's like building those connections with people that you trust is super important. So we found, a lender that has been, had our back for 3 years now. And we've got a transaction coordinator that, is tons of experience in the business and has been really supportive of us. And I think building connections with people that you trust is so important. And so I think one of the things that I would have done differently starting out is probably joining a brokerage like we're in now, Momentum, where, the culture is just unbelievable. And it's so positive, and everyone's just like vulnerable and trying to support each other, wins and losses. So I think that would have, I've been in and out of wanting to stay in real estate or get out of it and go back into event planning. But I think now I'm really feeling inspired by the passion that these people have. And I think that that's the big thing I would have changed from the beginning for us.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to create my own question now. I'm going to go off my sheet here because you brought up something very important there. So someone starting new, you guys, from what I just translated from what you just told me, it was the relationships that you had. In this case, it was the lender, and you had a transaction coordinator that really kind of gave you a peace of mind, took a load off of you as far as those particular pieces of the real estate puzzle, right? So as someone that's starting new, what are some ways that they can, because I know as a lender going in, having coffee with people who haven't produced anything can be hit or miss. And a lot of times it's the newest of agents go get coffee appointments with the newest of loan officers who haven't even written a loan yet. They'll have that appointment because they both are in that same field, where that agent that can really knows what they're doing, they're sort of busy and they're looking on, you've only done a couple transactions, or if any, and do I have time, for you, occasionally that, you run into. So how would you force that if you're a new agent to take your book? What you're saying is get some of those relationships together, whether it's other real estate agents that you can get on the phone with, answer questions, or all the support vendors that we have in our industry.
So in my opinion, I don't think you can force it. Like, I think you have to have that drive that says, I want to do this job. And and you have to, having mentors is really important, but we were talking about this yesterday. It's like, how do you get these agents to produce more, to actually show up? That has to be some sort of self-motivation for them to show up. But I think if you work at building a community of people around you that have your back and are there, I know Toby or I in a heartbeat would go out and have coffee with someone who's interested in getting in the business, but you can pretty much sniff out whether or not that they have the motivation to be in this job. We've been approached by some people getting out of the Navy who have said, we want to get into real estate, because we don't want to work that hard. We just kind of want to do our own thing and not work that hard. And then it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, it's gonna work.
We're going to get on that subject here in a minute of the working hard. It's a different work than you talk. When I use the term force is I guess there's lack of better word, meaning you have to actually go out but make those interactions. You have to show up for the coffee appointment. You have to go to some of these socials because you're going to meet people that, you don't necessarily cross paths every day, right?
Yeah.
A lender's not necessarily your neighbor. You've got to go out and start interacting. and mingling with those, especially the quality people in our industry.
It's like, I remember it was only 3 years ago. I was a new agent. So know what it feels like. So if you are like, you got to go out, you got to show up, you got to find other agents that are producing and then emulate what they're doing. Take some of their things and then make it your own. That's the best way to do it. And to get connections because they've been in the business for a while. So they can, they can point you over here. Hey, this is a good idea over here. Check this out. But it's really, the motivation has to be on them to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think we have been as good at showing up to some of these larger events recently. I think some of the stuff that we've done is like one-on-one connections with people. I think whatever feels better for the agent, I think is really important, but it's a matter of putting yourself out there and just making that one-on-one connection with someone who can teach you something. Everybody has something to share.
Hey folks, this episode was produced by Streamline Media, the #1 media company for helping brands generate content that converts. I knew I wanted to start a podcast to reach more people and bring value to the world, but I did not have the time or the knowledge. Streamline Media became my secret weapon to building my show. They handle all my back-end work, production, and strategies to keep my show going strong. If you're in the real estate business and looking to make content that generates more leads and brings in more revenue, check out the Streamline Media link in the show notes and discover how partnering up can supercharge your path to real estate excellence. I heard something, I know I've heard this before, and if you've been in any sales or especially multi-level marketing, your effectiveness is oftentimes related to, how many people know you. You're getting out there. That was one reason why I started the podcast, right? To come in, add value to you guys, but then I get to meet every one of you. To go out and actually, like you said, showing up, whether it's one-on-one because you're more comfortable with that, or you like going to a Jacksonville producers event where there's a bunch of people around. But generally, most of those people already know each other. There's only a handful. There's some people like, well, maybe we haven't interacted, but I know who you are. Type of thing goes on. So to get out in I think one of the things, like you said, your Navy friends or brothers and sisters calling you, I want to be. Well, you got to get out and start meeting people. You got to start shaking hands. Yep. You mentioned it earlier. The last couple of years, you spent a lot of time trying to build the best relationships you can with the brothers and sisters you were working with before you got out.
I did, and I didn't ever bring up real estate. I never told them what. I made sure to make connections. It's a good thing you should be doing this anyways.
Right.
Nice.
Right. Now you have a reason to.
Right. Yeah. But like, it's just being friends with everyone, and just like being there for them, and then just especially like now, this is one thing I miss about the Navy is the camaraderie, like the people you're around. So I'm not around that many people anymore unless we work together. So it's constantly always commenting on their posts, knowing what's going on in their life because it's, it makes them feel, it makes me feel. So.
Well, there's definitely a bond in, I think the military, you've treaded over the same turf. You whether it's been at one naval installation or another, you've been there. Oh yeah, I was stationed in Jackson. I've been stationed in Maine or wherever you went to boot camp, that sort of thing. And you have a bond, whether you were serving at the same time or 20 years different. You were on the same ship or you were on a ship, or in this case you weren't, but right. But
it's a bond.
There is a bond.
It is a bond.
There is a bond there.
That's why I always have the hashtag Navy Trust Navy.
Navy Trust Navy. I'm going to put that. I'll make that a little Canva thing for that. All right. Well, you said something there about like making remarks on their social media posts and so forth, which leads me into one question. What is because I imagine you're kind of leading the prospecting.
Yeah. Jenna's on the backside. I'm on the front side.
So what is your favorite way? And the reason why I ask this, because John Brooks drills down on this for you guys and tries to help everyone find their niche in prospecting because everyone's a little different. What is your go-to prospecting that you can, 10X?
Yeah. So I do a lot of business from Facebook. I don't pay for any ads or anything like that. One's probably because I don't know how to make it. Yeah. It's always reaching out to people like that. My first year, because I didn't know where I was going to get business. So I did a lot of cold calling. So I had to figure out how to do that. Followed a couple of people that do it successfully online. Did that for a while. And I was like, oh, I really suck at this, but it's starting to work a little bit. And then I got a couple transactions under my belt with like some Navy people, but I have a we have a running theme right now where like we're working with a couple of people that are deployed right now. We work with a lot of people deployed. So we do a lot of virtual showings, make sure they're all good to go. And, when they're coming back, they're excited, which is great. They're going to buy their house, but they're talking to all their buddies out there and you get a referral from there. So we've had, probably referral just keeps going to the point.
They're in close quarters.
Very close.
So that's their quarters. Yeah, they're talking.
Sometimes, at one point we had like 5 or 6 in a span of like 4 months because they're all coming back.
Right.
So it's kind of blown up a little bit in the Navy because, they know that's like one of their brothers out there that's doing it. And so they know and trust me because, it's the same. It's the same thing I tell everyone. Like, I'm going to give you the same advice if Jenna and I are buying or selling. If I don't think it's a good idea, I'm going to tell you. And I'll tell you why. That
brings up an interesting thought there. And I've had someone on here. I can't remember what we were talking about. The virtual sale, the walking around FaceTiming or whatever you're doing. I imagine on the ship, if you're sending someone a video and they're sitting here watching it, I guarantee you one of their buddies is over their shoulder.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Watching it as well. Hey, this is a house I'm looking at. Boom. You've got eyes. So there's
deployment. You're bored.
Yes, exactly. So what are some of the little things that you've done or just learned how to do? Because I imagine you weren't perfect at it at first, but when you're doing that virtual sale, that distance sale, whether they're up in Seattle, Washington, or they're on a ship in the Mediterranean, what are some techniques that you do when you do that walkthrough through the house to show them?
Yeah. So it's, I make sure, obviously, that's why sometimes I'm working 2 or 3 in the morning because, they're 12, 13 hours ahead. So their schedules, you always got to accommodate to them first. So that's the main thing is to build the trust and everything. They had one of their buddies that I helped or we helped, but it's, they're on our side, they're looking at their homes, then they let me know what they like. And then usually what I'll do is, it depends on their situation. If it's like late or something like that, if it's not, then we'll do like a FaceTime. But most of the time I'm always doing a video anyways. I record it, I put it on my YouTube and then I send them the link. And then when they get the link, they open it up, let me know, we'll jump on the phone whenever they wake up or whatnot. And then kind of take it from there.
Talk them through it.
We talk it through. But you have to but this is the thing. It's like, I'm still uncomfortable doing it. But we're good at it now because we do a lot of virtual stuff. So you have to disclose everything because they're not here.
They're not seeing the neighbor's house. They're not.
Totally different experience.
It's a way different experience. So you have to approach it like just very carefully, because, I always run and joke. I always tell them, I was like, I don't want to down later. But like, so we're recording, they're pretty long because I want to make sure they know everything that's also
right. Because there's more to just sending them the link to the listing.
Correct.
And then just seeing those pictures, which are obviously, anybody's going to list a house or going to make the house look the best they can because I want people to actually come and look at it. And most of the time the house doesn't look quite as good as the pictures, but it got you there. And that's what they're for. It's a online sales. And now but now you got to be the realist. Is there times where based on what they've told you, you kind of, because I imagine they're online too. They're like, hey, Toby, what do you think of this house over here? It seems to be in the price point where you kind of distract them from it or recommend that. That based on what you told me, that house isn't going to work. I know it's the right price, but that way you're not into, because like I said, you got to be full disclosure. You want to get a full 360 around that house. Show them who the neighbors are. Show them,
But be careful too,
because you have to protect yourself. Yeah.
Correct. You can't say the wrong things or give out the wrong information.
But you can video it.
I can video it.
Right. I've done that before too with some of the showings, and you go in advance. You go and you turn all the lights on. You make sure all the doors are open. You make sure the house is fully ready. You start by spanning the neighborhood and what they're seeing outside. And then, you can tell based on the conversations you've had with the buyer what they're going to like and not like. So ways to kind of get around, like, I'm not sure that you would be super excited about this neighborhood.
Right.
And, one of the first times that we closed with a buyer that was overseas was they were home for the closing and we did the final walkthrough. And that's always like, oh boy, I hope they like the house, and we haven't luckily had any bad experience. But I remember that first one was pretty nerve wracking. Okay. Are they actually going to like what they bought?
It's very similar to a normal. Let me just put it's pretty similar to a normal showing, but it's just, you just have to go more in depth and then to have the.
Yeah. Because they're not there turning their head. You have to turn their head for them. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. are you finding a lot of them are ready to buy sometimes from the distance, or, the husband or wife is deployed and the spouse is here, and then,
yeah. So
or more, are you getting some clients too that they're actually starting their looking process because they know in 6 months and they just want to see what's available in, what in their price range or in the neighborhoods they're thinking about right now, but they're really not going to buy for 6 months. So the house you might be showing them is probably not going to be there.
Yeah. But that's the initial conversation. So if before they go on deployment, they know that it's, they want to buy it while they're out there. Because that's the thing. We know about orders. We know about the lingo. We know about how all that works. So that's why it helps with them. So if they want to buy out there, that's going to be fine. We do online notary, all that good stuff. Because when they come back, they don't want to waste their leave to go look at homes if they don't have to.
Right.
You know what I mean? Especially if they have like a family. Well, now they want to be settled. That way when they're there, they're good to go. Family's settled, good to go.
A lot of it happens before they get home.
Yeah. So if it's 6 months out, to answer your question, we just let them know, like, hey, it's not a good idea to look. You're on our site or like that. Check out homes. I just want you to have a feel of the market, what's out there, the prices, the price points. But like, if we look at something right now, I don't want to show it to you because you're going to love it. And it's going to, unless you want to buy now, but you're going to be paying a mortgage. Are
a lot of these, what's the percentage or that are just being given orders to come to Jacksonville versus those who are actually like yourself retired, leaving the Navy or any of the armed services? What is the percentage of that you're dealing with? There are a lot of these. And the reason I'm asking the question is because I think the person who's getting new orders to come to Jacksonville is a little quicker to make just a command decision because they just want a house for their family to be in, versus that person who is, now leaving the service, they're might be in there for a while, right? There's a different attitude. Right. Yeah.
So what's the percentage of our how many?
Yeah.
Probably say it's 50-50.
Yeah.
Right. 50-50.
But do you notice a difference in the?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Because they have to make a move, because it's time crunch. So versus people out here, like, we're not salesy at all. Like I can't stand sales. So it's like, we don't, like, if you buy, you buy.
You're just really good at it. You don't know what you're doing.
No, if you buy, that's great. If you don't, that's great. If you sell, that's great. If you don't, that's great. We're just here to advise you, to help you out. So, someone might hit me up, but they might not buy for like a whole year. Cool. Do what you want. It's your money.
Right.
But like, if it's someone that's coming in for like a deployment, or whatnot, like, that's when like, hey, these are our priorities, as it should be. But they have to be in, like, we have a chart within the next month, 2 months.
So who's keeping track of this scenario? And I bring this up because I had Heather and Danielle on last week, and they were talking about a postcard or whatever. They kept trickling on this person. Actually, I think it was 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. I forget the time, but it was a period of time. And then the person never responded, didn't unsubscribe from the emails or anything. But then all of a sudden, just out of the blue, said, "Okay, I'm ready. I want to go buy this house, or I'm ready to go buy. I'm ready to just go find a house." So you get these people in this pipeline. How often are you, what are some of the things that you're doing for the ones who are, might be 6-8 months or more out? What are you doing to make sure they're still in your house and on your team?
Sure. So we have them in our CRM, and then we just set it up for follow-up. So depending on a lot of them are our friends that we've met over time. All our customers become friends and they tell the other friends about it. But I would say if it's like 6 months to a year, we'll have that initial conversation with them over phone to see what they want.
Is it all email or
I'll text.
What's kind of your process from, I know a lot of different teams have, whether it's a 30, 60, 90 day, and then, obviously the 180 and 3. Are you calling them for a while and then go to email, or do you have, what's kind of your schedule?
Yeah. So we'll have that initial call, and then we will, put them on a, like a drip campaign or whatever, but like those weird ones where it doesn't make sense.
It's just alerting them when new houses come up so they can.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're always on the site. So I know when they're looking. So, right. But it's probably every 30 days, 30, 45 days. I'll either call them. If I don't answer, I'll send them a text. Right. I don't want to be all over about it.
When you know that they're seriously 6 months, because I think it's a little different. And actually, it's beneficial. Obviously, the clientele that you're focused on, your Navy brothers, is they know when that time's coming. They know when that ship's coming back, right?
Right.
Or they know when their deployment's over and they have a date set versus just any run of the mill customer just looking to upgrade their home or maybe downsize locally, they may have time, but then they might see the right house and buy it tomorrow.
Oh, exactly.
You know?
You never know what they're going to say. They get 6 months and be like, oh no, that's it.
Yeah. I'm not in a rush right now. And all of a sudden they see it and they're out.
Yeah. And I think that's happened to us a lot of times too, because with, some of the internet leads that we've tested, there's been some that will look, we determine, or they tell us when they want these listings to be sent to them, whether it's monthly, whether it's weekly, whether it's every day. And so you can tell when they look at it, and we figure out the touch points based on, the age of the customer, like the price point of the customer, where they are in the country. One of the things I tested this year, because I do a lot of the, customer appreciation stuff. So one of the things we tested was sending out a handwritten Thanksgiving card with a Starbucks gift card. And we got a lot of good feedback from that from people that we hadn't heard from in months. So I think a lot of people really appreciate that personal outreach. And I think Toby's pretty good at engaging.
Do you give me the details of that campaign? So these are older, a little bit aged leads.
Yep.
You sent them a $5 gift card?
Yeah, we did. So we did thank you cards to our customers that have closed with us. Thank you to cards to our customers that we're nurturing. And then thank you cards to people that that kind of went dark and we haven't heard from, just to say, thank you for, being a part of the Elkins Group, and here's a $5 gift card, happy holidays, kind of thing.
Right.
And so we got, really great feedback from our past customers who were like, wow, we didn't expect this. From the nurture people, it kind of generated another part of a conversation. One of the people, actually, we just got under contract last week because they were like, wow, we should probably make a move on this. It kind of like jogged their memory that this was something that they were thinking about.
Starbucks gift card.
A Starbucks gift card. I know. But I think it's more just the handwritten.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Goes a long way. Everybody gets emails. Their people's email boxes are flooded with emails, and just having that personal touch. And a lot of times I'll throw in, because we have a Facebook page where people subscribe to. And so I can see, they're having a baby. I'll write in, congratulations on your new addition, and just adding that personal touch that really makes it feel like a relationship versus a business transaction. It's really important.
And to go back real quick, just like those people that you were talking about that are out there, we always make sure they always add to our social profiles. Okay. I think that's key, because that way you don't have to like bombard them with like calls and texts, unless it's like 30, 60 days, because you're top of mind. That's why.
One of my next things was social media and what you're doing there. And you mentioned it earlier, and that's, you're hearing from some of the social media gurus, you get on our different podcasts, that I'll tell you, if you're using social media, is to engage. Social media is to be social. And that, because when you start engaging with those people, then Facebook starts putting you more in front of them, because you are talking to them.
Yep.
Yeah. So 100%. I think that's one of the little things. There's, two things that we all should be doing, both sides, whether the loan officer or a real estate agent, is adding people to the CRM.
Yep.
And then, like you said, going on and friending them on Facebook, start interacting with them, start seeing, like you said, to stay top of mind and seeing it's their birthday, or, I know what the birthday is because I pull credit on them. I know what that is. You may not know unless you got a copy of their driver's license, but it pops up on social media, say, hey, so-and-so's birthday, or maybe they went on a trip or something, and you chime in, say, oh, those are beautiful pictures from your trip. Where'd you go? Where was that? And, that type of thing. So to engage on social media, how and you were leading into it, but just to kind of make the statement for those that are listening, you said early, you still today, you are not, the way you gestured, you're not fully confident that you are an expert in real estate. And so you feel you've got to be constantly educating. How important is that? And what are some sources that you use to, keep feeding yourself with new information and on the industry?
Yeah, I don't really don't. So to me, like, it was 3 years ago when I started, like, that was a big reason for us to move to Momentum was, I love the culture. I love everyone wants everyone to win, because business it really is. But like, at the end of the day, like, they know more than I know because they've been longer than us. And you have to get back to, like, I never really have been trained. Like, I can make the calls and take action, but like, I need to know the basics of real estate. And so we knew, we had trajectory. Like we were going pretty good numbers, but like it started plateauing. I could see it and I could feel it. And I was like, hey, we got to make a move because I need to be in the local presence to people that know what they're doing and just to soak it all up and learn. And also to be able to help everyone else out brokerage because everyone's great.
Right. Oh, well, I love, I've had both John and Brittany on separately, actually, on the show. I love their angle on running the business and making it as profitable for the agent as possible. Not going out there and doing 100 homes and, you run up this huge, volume of commission, but you blow it, spend a lot of it. And actually at the end of the day, what do you actually go home with? Is and their attitude towards that. I mean, what have you picked up already? And what's it been has it been a month? Have you?
A couple weeks.
Couple weeks now. It was the beginning of the year. Yeah. So, I mean, what are some of the things that you picked up? And I imagine in your initial conversation, because John's pretty forward about that part, that he likes to focus on the business and making it profitable.
So I've been a recruiter, and I like that because you're forcing you into anything. So, but the mindset they have.
Sales guys are easily sold to. I'm going to tell you that. You know what I'm saying?
But
John has a good product. That's why he bought it.
But we saw, because it is everything, like everything about the profit margin. And that's how business too is watching your fees, making sure you're not blowing all your money on crap. But we just saw the vision that they have, and it's very similar to what we wanted. So it's
and I think the quality of life thing is really something that struck me with them is like, we don't want you guys to be, slinging a rock uphill. Like, let's figure out a way. We were talking about social media. Like my best friend and my worst enemy. I hate social media when it comes to promoting the business. So it's like they've kind of talked us through, what are the things that you can delegate? What are the things that you can offload to be able to be more productive? Because ultimately you need to go get more leads. You need to go do this, but your quality of life needs to matter in this whole business. Right. And I think them being a husband and wife couple and us being a husband and wife couple or team is like, it's something to look up to and something to aspire to because they seem to have figured it out.
Well, so lately I've been on this artificial intelligence thing. If you've listened to my last couple podcasts, the Chat GPT. If you have not gone to Chat GPT yet, you need to. Yeah. And so I asked it to create those questions were mine. These are some questions I had it generate for me. Because I think I asked this basically a husband and wife real estate team. What questions are they not often asked or something like that? I came up with this. So how do you balance your professional and personal relationship while working as a husband and wife real estate team?
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
I mean, I think that's been a work in progress. So I think when we first started, it was constant. And, Toby's obsessed with real estate. And it's been his obsession for the past 3-4 years. There's a point at which I think I do not want to talk about real estate anymore. And I'll be very clear about it. Like, we're going to shift the conversation into something. So I need to have like little guardrails to say, if we're going out to dinner, like, okay, we've got to, it's not going to be about business at this point.
I don't care right now.
Yeah. I'm pretty clear about that.
But aren't you like stuck like, oh, okay, well, this is a nice restaurant.
What am I going to talk about?
But I do think we have a lot of fun together. I think we have a significant amount of respect for each other, but we just enjoy work. We have fun. And I think like, work hard, play hard. That's like the slogan. But I think in general, like we really do just have a good time together. So work doesn't always feel like work, which I think is a huge thing.
And we get to celebrate like our successes together. And then like, we have like bad days because we do. Because we're normal. Like it's like accountability partner. Like we're like, it's okay. It's not a big deal. Like, it's all good. Let's keep pushing. Just keep pushing.
One of the things that they're like those people making that phone call you said is, hey, we're thinking about getting into real estate and we don't want to work where we're going to circle back. I guess we're going to circle back to that. But I think people don't understand. I know I have family that don't understand, my wife's an agent. I've been doing loans for 17 and a half years. You answer the phone when the phone rings.
Yeah.
And I always use it's feast or famine. When it's time, when it's rolling, you gotta go because you just don't know when there is going to be a slowdown or a 2008 or, that type of thing, or, everyone got so, on the, highway the last 18 months. And now all of a sudden it's slowed down to a normal county road.
Exactly.
And so everyone's panicking from that standpoint, but we actually live our business. We're, even though I work for Loan Depot, your guys are totally self-employed, even though you got the Momentum logo there on your shirt. It's still you. John's not going to yell at you because you didn't show up today. He might call you a couple times and say, hey, what's going on? But the third time, he's probably going to say, I guess they don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
We've got to get up and make our own things happen. Whether that takes 15 minutes or 15 hours a day, that's what it takes. And I think a lot of people don't quite understand that. So when they talk about it, being easy is you may be going out to dinner with a past client, or maybe a client you may have just acquired that's looking for a home and say, hey, let's go out to dinner tonight, because you're building a relationship. Right. And it's building that relationship is part of what we do. It is, you are actually working and doing that. And I think that it's the relationship part I think a lot of people take out. You may be really good at having house parties and in great socials, and you're creating relationships all day long. If that's your business and it gets you referrals, do it every Saturday night. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I was talking to Century 21 down in St. Augustine, and they were talking about they were referring to someone. There's an agent who just loves doing YouTube videos, and he gets leads off of it, and he just gives the leads other. He doesn't want to actually deal with but he gets he's an license. Yeah. He gets the referral fee. That's what he likes to do.
He gets to chill at home.
Yes. He's 10Xing that. That's I guess he makes enough to awesome. Do that. So that's where I think the disconnect is from, we don't want to work as much. Yeah, we don't want to be required to clock in at 9, or, if you're on the ship, you're required to be at your post, whatever, from here to here, and show up at certain times and that sort of thing. They don't want someone else dictating that to them, but we just blend it into our life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. It's constant.
These are the good questions I like when you have the husband and wife team, and we're going to do it.
Oh boy.
How do you, this is going to lead into the second question, but this is the softball question. How do you approach decision-making and problem solving as a team? And you kind of led a little bit into it when you said you're having a bad day and you have that accountability part. But when it comes to marketing or anything that you guys are doing, or even how to negotiate some little tougher deals that need some post-contract negotiation, how do you guys do your problem solving?
Should we talk about the good cop, bad cop?
Yeah.
So I think in terms of problem solving, I think we're very well aware of what our strengths and weaknesses are. And so I think that one of the things that we've established is when it comes to negotiation, my experience in the corporate world has helped me be a little bit stronger of a negotiator. So sometimes Toby will come in as a little bit of the gentler presence. And then when we really need something
I would have thought
done,
the other way.
That's what most people say. Well, that's the part that I like. I mean, it's all about give and take, but I think I really enjoy I enjoy negotiating to the point where everybody is winning, in some way.
Right.
So I think we've pretty much established, it's sort of an easy handoff. Okay, the decision is that you're going to deal with this, and then the decision may be that I'm going to deal with this, just based on, and that's all been trial and error. I don't think anybody figures that out right away. I think it's a matter of
we got a good system
time and experience.
It took time.
Yeah.
But if I did that though, I can do it because I did it before Jenna came on. That just takes time away from what I need to be doing. That is income producing activities.
Yes.
That actually matter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Prospecting.
Because that one's already in the trap.
It's in the system. Yeah. It's good to go. It's going to close. We're going to make sure it closes.
Right.
So it allows me to put all my energy, because that's all we do, or that's all I do, prospect and lead gen all day, every day.
So you've been in the business 3 years already. You've already realized that. I had Kim Knapp on, a few weeks ago, very successful. She's been in the business 20 years, and she said the same exact thing. I don't know where along the line she came to that conclusion, but, whether it's having, pre-listing inspections to avoid, the repair, because those are time suckers.
Yeah.
And, going over the littlest of things. And like she said, a lot of times is, for something less than $1,000, it's like, she goes back to her buyers and said, so you're willing to pass on this for $1,000? This is the house you want with the market conditions you are. We don't know, there's only one house on that street. You may find another model, like it, but that's on that street, it's on the golf course or it's on the water or whatever. Right. That's the only address, right?
Yeah.
Are you willing to walk away for $1,000? But she mentioned the same exact thing. Those types of post-contract things are time suckers to take away from the money marketing activities.
That every agent should be.
Yeah,
that's
100%. I mean, and she runs a huge team here, and you've picked that up in just 3 years to find those things, or obviously have a teammate that knows how to squash them quickly, efficiently. Yeah, and enjoys doing it.
Yes, she does.
All right. How do you handle conflicts and disagreements between each other? There has to be a story of a disagreement. Have we had a door slam? Any door slams? What?
I think we do, like we need some space sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we work together, we live together.
You go to the coffee shop today?
Yeah.
You go to the coffee shop today. I'm on this
I
side of the
remember
house,
when we first got into real estate, we were renting an apartment and it was both working from home. It was a small apartment. So I would just hightail it out of there to the coffee shop at Jack's Beach just to get a little space in between us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, it happens. And I think that, getting a little time and space away from each other sometimes just to let it all simmer is probably my best advice.
I'm gonna. This is my last formal question.
Okay.
Unless you guys can add anything in here, things, because like I said, I want this video, it's out there, the podcast out there, whether someone tomorrow or 3 years from now listens to it, learns a little bit about you guys and what your ideology and how you guys work together, that they're going to pick up something from the show and different things. So if I've missed anything, you guys could be thinking about something you want to say, but here's my last formal question. Share a unique challenge or benefit you have experienced working as a husband and wife real estate team.
So I would say challenge it's still a work in progress, but trying to figure out how to, make sure our systems are nice and smooth, right? It's a challenge because otherwise we're going to argue a little bit because we're husband and wife and around each other. What do you think?
Well, you're just willing to say it to her, where if it was a coworker or someone you hired, you just kind of you'd polish it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Correct. So like it's
I think he's doing that right now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's obvious unique benefits, right? We are a team of two and everything that we do comes to us, which is amazing. I mean, it's been, I think, a unique benefit. To be honest with you, we've made such a community of friends through this job.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's a lot of young couples that will come to us to buy a house and look to us, to see that what we've done, and we keep relationships with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's been really nice. I mean, I worked from home for 12 years when I first moved to Jacksonville, and it was really hard to meet people. And throughout, getting into real estate and building this community, I feel like Jacksonville is where we're going to be forever, because we just have this group of people, they come, they go, but we still keep in touch. And I think that, being able to do that together is really
You bring up an interesting thing. I know another couple, they're very social people. They and their kids are already out into college. So they have the ability to do it. Do you feel because you're a couple and the fact that they're meeting you through this transaction, that because they did business with you as a couple, it's a little easier for them to say, hey, why don't you guys come over, or you invite them over, versus if you were, the single agent and the spouse is doing something completely different, I don't really know, they're going to get along, or it's just not, but because you're a couple, it's already like, oh, well, my family, I know your family, type of thing. It's a little bit easier to have that interaction.
Yeah,
for sure.
More social and relationship building.
Yeah.
That's all I have, guys. I obviously I try to do as much research on you as possible. We were going almost an hour and 20, a little over an hour, 15 minutes. Yeah, it goes by fast.
Yeah, that's good.
There'll be a lot of good reels and put content to create for you guys for your social media. But anything that, I guess, the common question is that sales questions, if someone simply asks you, and I'm sure you've been asked, why should someone be working with the Elkins Group? What benefits are we going to be working with from you guys?
Well, I would say that one, we take this stuff very seriously. Mm-hmm. So we are in it with them to win it. So they're looking for a home. It's the same thing. If Jenna and I buy a home, we're going to make sure they're getting the right property for them, because they always got to have their seller hat on before they buy it if they want to, sell it down the road. So constantly giving them advice throughout the whole transaction to make sure that they know that we have their back. Okay? We will do whatever we have to do on our side to get to the closing. And we're pretty.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the selling side, it's the same thing. It's just people want real, and they want people that are going to actually tell you the truth and not BS it, and I feel like that's what we do very well.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I just think, when people work with us, they definitely feel a part of the family because we are a family.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that it's sort of, we just have that effect where, like Toby said, it's like, well, we think about this as, would we do this for our family? And a lot of people, that resonates with them. And I think, we're very dedicated to the customer, and we don't pretend to know everything about real estate. I mean, that's the thing about even being on this podcast is I feel a little silly because I'm still learning so much as we go, but we don't pretend to know everything. And so we're very clear about the fact that, if we don't know an answer to something, we will find out.
Yeah, we'll find out.
But we're not going to bullshit.
Well, I will say, let's say a couple of things, actually. One, your dynamics are there. Knowing your roles, your strengths, you said that earlier, plays with you. I know I had these thoughts going through and I'm going to lose half of them. But I think if there's an agent listening right now, your success is because you focused on, when there's time to do the prospecting, time, the last 2 years, you started thinking and putting your mindset into, I'm going to be a real estate agent. So you were meeting and greeting, you were doing those things, shaking hands, and I don't know if you were keeping track of everybody or whatever it was, you've created this process because the front thing is the prospecting backed by the relationship. And that's what you guys are pretty good at. I'm one of those people who say I'm not an expert at all. I don't know every loan program. If you call me and say, hey, so-and-so, do you have this program? Because I've heard there's this program out there. We probably do. We got more programs. I can clog my brain with programs, but I'm not a trainer.
Yeah.
I'm an originator. I have to build relationships. You are an originator. You have to build relationships. If there comes the loan comes off the track or the transaction comes off the track, there are a lot of people who we pay a lot of money, that make a lot of money in this business, like the title companies. They see all these transactions. We only see a fraction. They see them all because they're all coming through. The underwriters, they see all the loans that Loan Depot writes, not just few. So that the originator's doing, they're dealing with all, a bunch of, so there are smarter people that are there to back us up. And when you have that confidence that's there, you focus on what, you need to focus. In the Navy, you had one job or, you had a couple different things that you had to do. You weren't flying the plane. Yeah. So that was your job and you focus on it. And I think that's what you guys got here is you're building relationships. And then I think the really dynamic thing that I've seen with the couples, as we've talked about before, whether it's John and Brittany, whether it's the Glenn team, whether it's John and Andrea, is their roles. Mm-hmm. Not to say that they only stay in their lane because we know we cross over.
Yeah.
They want to tell the other person they got pie on their face or something. Right? But I think that's what they're getting with you guys in the couple dynamic in our conversation here. So good. Anything else to add?
Yeah.
Good. All right. I asked this question to everyone that's been on the show. Each of you might have different answers. Maybe. Is it more important who you know or what you know and why?
So I think I've heard you say this before and I know what you say.
I change sometimes too.
To me, and this is just my opinion, I think it's what you know. Because when I first came into the business, I had to learn everything on my own. Okay. And so I feel like that's just my opinion, but I feel like knowledge is everything and learning. And it helps with your drive and you get more confident because you're learning. So I think it's
and no surprise here, but I'm the opposite. I think it's sweet.
I think, my immediate thought when I looked at you and you said it was my immediate thought in event planning.
Yeah.
There's a lot of who you know.
It's who you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what you know has so much, it depends so much on who you know. Because when you spend the time talking to people and when you go through different scenarios with people and you build relationships with people, I mean, things happen for you. So I think that what you know increases based on who you know.
I think this is my analogy, your two different answers. Because of the world you came from the event planning.
Yeah.
You don't pick the location often, right? If someone says, I want to have an event and we're going to have it at that hotel, make it happen. Mm-hmm. So you got to get to know, who's the people who are going to help me get that done. You come from the structured environment where you're trained heavily to do what you do. Yeah. And then they leave you alone and let you go do it.
Yeah.
And then so you entering the civilian world, your first thing was to do when you entered the Navy was to learn as much as possible about what you were going to do. This is my bad.
That makes sense.
Like that.
Thanks.
I always thought I should have been a psychology major. All right.
I'm paying for the. All right.
I just going to close out the show. Please like and subscribe. I'm on the only social media is the ones Snapchat and those things I'm not on, but you're going to see reels from the show on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook Reels, Facebook itself, all at Real Estate Excellence, and also including LinkedIn on my personal account. But even if you put Real Estate Excellence, that should come up as well, as I do post articles and the clips from the show behind those great ones. So please like and subscribe, especially to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to pump that up. But appreciate everyone. If you can make a review of the show, I would appreciate that as well. And thank you for the Elkins Group for coming on today.
Thank you so much.
All right.